Okay, this is a video of how to fit a RAMagic unit into a Master 128. That's the RAMagic as it comes out of the box, and here we have a Master 128 computer. I've already taken these screws out of the case, so I'll just lift the top off. And inside we can see that there's 3 ROM sockets down here, and for ease of access I usually recommend just lift up the speaker unit and just move it out of the way. You don't have to unplug it. As I say, there are 3 ROM sockets here. The centre one is genuinely free and you can just fit any ROM you like in there, and that's the one I recommend to use for RAMagic. It's slot 8 IC27. There are ROM sockets either side of this one which you can also use for sideways ROMs, but if you do so you have to move a link and then you'll lose a sideways RAM bank as a consequence. So I recommend RAMagic in the centre position, and if you have any other sideways ROMs you want to use, see if you can get hold of cartridges to use in the cartridge port. So basic anti-static precautions: it's just leave the computer plugged in to the mains, but leave it switched off at the mains, and then before you start work, and periodically if you're doing a lot of work, just touch the metalwork, or the BNC video connector at the back's a good one to just get hold of, and just discharge any static from yourself. We'll get the RAMagic unit, bring it over here, pop the RAMagic chip out of the foam, and essentially it's a 28 pin chip, but there's no pin at pin 1 and pin 27. That's intentional. So we gently sit the RAMagic unit onto the IC27 position and just check while it's sitting there that all the pins are lined up and the thing's square, and then you just, as fitting any IC, just get hold of it lightly with say thumb and forefinger, and just gently apply pressure forwards and backwards, and then maybe finally centrally with your thumb, and it should be nice and solid and fitted, and that's that done. We then take the analog port pass-through connector, bob that onto the analog port, and for the master that's it. The switch and hook probe aren't used in the Master 128, they're only used in a BBC or BBC Plus. So, but because the RAMagic unit is designed to be able to be used in both, not committed to one or the other, you've got the switch and the probe, but they're not actually used on the Master. Now, you could, if you wanted, put these in a small plastic bag and leave them inside the machine, or leave them out of the back. And the one thing to watch for, if you're going to leave them outside the unit, there is a cable that just needs to go somewhere, and unlike the Beeb, the Master doesn't have ventilation slots, so there is a danger of this cable getting trapped between the case and the metalwork. So what I've actually done on this Master and on the ones I've fitted them to, you can just see I've made I've just cut the bottom out of one of the ventilation slot holes, and that just allows a little groove for that cable to sit in. So I won't put the lid back on just now because it's quite hard to do it with one hand and hold the camera, so I'll just put the speaker unit back down there, and then essentially we're ready to do the software installation. So what I'll do is power up the Master, and this one kicks off into Acorn A DFS, so I'll just do a Control D brake, and that brings me up into Acorn 1770 DFS. RAMagic actually, for the disk transfer system, works in DFS, so if you're going to use that system you need to bring it up in DFS anyway. And the supplied disk, the installation software, is also in DFS format. So what we do is we pop the installation disk into the drive. I think I've got that set to drive 0, and we type *RM load, and this program will do a few things. when it initially runs, it'll first of all check what machine it's running on, i.e. is it a Master 128 or is it one of the B series. Having done that, and this then applies to all machines, it'll work its way through all 16, potentially 16 ROM sockets, looking for the RAMagic hardware. Assuming it finds it, it will run some short tests on the hardware which will check that you've done the installation properly, and then it'll load the appropriate software, either the Master 128 software or the B series software. So I'll press enter, and it's telling me to set the switch to RTC and press return. RTC, real-time clock, that's the sort of basic RAMagic position for the switch, because as I've said, if you use it on a BBC B or a B+, you can use these other positions, these ROM and RAM positions, but since this is a master, it's going to be staying in that position, so I'll just check the switch and put it into the RTC position. It's worth pointing out, when you get a RAMagic unit, it is blank, it's empty of software, there's nothing in there, so you need to go through this process, but you only need to do this once, and then once the RAMagic unit's loaded, I could move this across into another master and it'll just work. The only time you need to repeat this is if you move it to a different machine. So if I move this one when I've loaded it into a BBC B, I'll have to repeat this process to load the B software. So switch to RTC, press return. Now it says checking installation, RAMagic hardware found in socket 8, loading code image. Which takes, again, about 20 seconds. In that first few seconds, as I say, it did actually, happens quite quickly, but it did search through, it found RAMagic, it did some tests, and then it loaded it. Now it says press brake to complete the installation, so I'll actually do a D brake on here, so just hold that, control D brake, and what you can see now is we've now got the RAMagic startup screen. It says Tuesday 7th of April 09. I think this particular unit, when I've tested it, I've already had the date and time set, so if I do a star help, we've now got spacebar, shift rather. There, we've got down the bottom there, we can see RAMagic reporting as 2.1M. That's the latest and current version of the RAMagic master software. And if I do a star help magic, we've now got the RAMagic command set up there on the TV. And that's essentially how the installation works. It's the same on both machines, exactly the same on the BBC B, except you're going to plug it into one of the sideways ROM sockets down the bottom, or into an expansion ROM expansion board. So that's really all there is to it. It's just plug the chip in, plug the connector, load the software, and obviously from this point on now, if I turn the machine off, can pull the disc out, that unit's now loaded and will just stay loaded forever basically, unless we reload it again. So if I switch on again, hold down the D key to, boot this into DFS, and there we've got the time and date across the top of the screen, which tells us RAMagic's in there. You can turn that off if you do star T brake, enter, and then brake. You'll now stop having time displayed across the top of the TV unless you turn it on again with star T brake. But so it's quite fairly straightforward. It's just being very careful when you fit that unit, get it the right way around. Pin 1's marked by that small hand symbol, and on the master that's facing left. On BBC B it's also facing left, but the actual RAMagic module will be vertical on the PCB. Let's just get that right and make sure before you press it down that all the pins are in sockets and there's none going to bend underneath it. And that's it.